Ah, feels so refreshing. Revived. Ensley, my sister-in-law, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, came over to our place and sprawled out on the air-conditioned living room sofa, as usual. My daughter Mirinda, who was doing her homework, frowned in annoyance. Let's see, haven't finished your summer project yet, have you? Ensley peered over at the summer plan. I remember those days. With summer projects, you never really know what to do, right? In that regard, Mirinda, I'm kinda envious of you. What do you mean? Mirinda asked, puzzled. Well, not many kids are born with such an interesting face like you. How about you compile something about that challenge of yours? LOL. It'd be easy, right? Mirinda was born with a rare condition called cleft lip and palate, which resulted in splits in her upper lip and palate. She had undergone numerous surgeries over the years, but more than anything, it was the stares from others that hurt her the most. The condition made her face asymmetrical from her mouth to her nose, and the ignorant stares were painfully sharp. Why am I the only one like this? Mirinda had tearfully asked before. I couldn't stay silent at Ensley's incredibly insensitive remark. Ensley. Even if we're family, there are things you should and shouldn't say. I was just stating the facts. If she compiles something about her interesting condition, everyone will be pleased, won't they? Ensley is laughing, saying Mirinda's condition is interesting. Without knowing how much pain and struggle Mirinda and we have gone through. Don't worry about what she says, Mirinda. I grabbed Ensley's arm, ready to forcefully drag her out of the house. That's when Mirinda stood up slowly, smiling, and said, Don't worry, Mom, I've decided. My name is Eleanor. I live with my elementary school-aged daughter Mirinda. My husband Dennis is a good husband and father, but he's away on work assignment. I'm home, Mom. I'll go wash my hands, then I'll help with chopping the vegetables. Saying this, Mirinda took off her mask. Nowadays, everyone wears masks when going out due to the pandemic. But Mirinda has been wearing a mask in front of anyone other than family since she was young. She must still feel resistance to showing her bare face. Mirinda was born with a condition called cleft lip and palate, which is not commonly known. It's a congenital condition where the upper lip and palate are split, occurring in about 1 in 1,000 births in the United States. Seeing our child for the first time, my husband and I were shocked, but also vowed to protect her no matter what. Cleft lip and palate requires several surgeries, and Mirinda's first surgery was just 2 months after she was born. Though the surgery closed her mouth, it didn't completely correct the distortion in her mouth and nose. Most people don't know much about this condition, which made me worried about how Mirinda would be perceived as she grew up. There would surely be times when Mirinda would get hurt. Still, Dennis and I discussed letting Mirinda live like any other child, attending school and going to amusement parks just like her peers. The days of hospital visits must have been painful for young Mirinda, who usually doesn't complain much. Mirinda would become anxious before surgery, saying, Mom. There must have been unspeakable anxiety clinging to her. She wouldn't let go of my hand until she fell asleep. As an elementary student, Mirinda would come home and share various school events with laughter. Today, Gerald in my class mimicked the teacher, and it was so funny. During lunch, we played rock, paper, scissors to see who gets the dessert of the kid who was absent, and Caitlin won. Over the last long weekend, Tyrone from the next class went on a vacation with his family. But their dad got lost while driving, and it was a huge mess. Mirinda would tell fun stories at dinner every day, but I noticed something off. None of the stories Mirinda told included herself. Mirinda always just tells me about things others have said or done. She never mentions doing anything with a friend herself. Despite a bad feeling, I lacked the courage to directly ask her about it. One day in 2nd grade, Mirinda came home crying. "What's wrong? What happened?" Seeing Mirinda cry, except before surgeries, surprised me. Mirinda was silent, looking frustrated, but then she couldn't hold back anymore and started crying louder. "It's okay, you can cry all you want." I hugged my daughter tightly. After calming down, Mirinda said, "You know, Mom," and shared feelings she had kept to herself. Even though Mirinda wears a mask to school to hide her mouth and nose's distortions, she has to remove it during lunchtime. The first time they ate together, a boy sitting across from her pointed and laughed, saying, "Your face looks weird." That started it, and other kids gathered around, saying, "Really? That's funny," expressing their thoughts aloud. The teacher quickly scolded everyone, "Back to your seats," settling the situation. But from that day, Mirinda felt ostracized, unable to join any friend's circle. She had been enduring this for over a year. "Why did you keep silent until now?" "Because, Mom and Dad, you always have it tough because of my condition, right? Surgeries cost a lot of money, and you have to go back and forth between the hospital and home for me. Mirinda, for US." Knowing Mirinda was considerate of us made me feel inadequate as a parent. Why am I the only one like this? Tears fell again from Mirinda's eyes after she finished speaking. "I'm sorry, Mirinda. Despite being blameless, she's had a hard time at school. Not just school. Mirinda might continue to be seen strangely by others because of her condition." I blamed myself, feeling responsible for her suffering. "I'm sorry, Mirinda. From now on, Mom promises to be by your side as much as possible to protect you. Even for busy Dad at work, I'll be with you." I hugged Mirinda again tightly. When I told Dennis after he came home, "It's hard not being there when you're going through tough times. I've let you handle all the hardship alone," Dennis also blamed himself. "It can't be helped. I'll protect Mirinda's heart, and you protect our livelihood. Let's protect Mirinda together." Yes, we should. We vowed again to protect our daughter. From that day, I quit my job at the apparel company and became a housewife. In 3rd grade, Mirinda underwent her 4th surgery. While the first 3 surgeries were minor corrections, the 4th involved transplanting bone from her pelvis to her upper jaw. It was more extensive than before, but it made the distortion from her mouth to her nose less noticeable, making her look no different from other children. However, having bone removed from her pelvis made walking difficult for Mirinda, forcing her into a wheelchair for a while. Still, Mirinda would look at her face in the hand mirror and ask with a bright, radiant smile never seen before, "Hey, Mom. Do I look prettier now?" Seeing my daughter happy and smiling without feeling self-conscious made me happy too. "Yes, you're very pretty, Mirinda." I brushed her hair and spoke to her. After a while, Mirinda began serious walking rehabilitation. She almost fell during the unfamiliar rehab, but when I tried to help, "Just watch, Mom," she scolded me. Holding onto the handrail, Mirinda grimaced with each step, "This is nothing. My face looks proper pretty now." Lucky, right, never showing any signs of weakness. "Does it hurt? Are you okay?" I couldn't help but worry and wanted to support her physically. "If you always support me, Mom, there's no point in rehab." Mirinda laughed shyly. As a result of her positive attitude towards rehab, the pain in her hips completely vanished, and she could walk on her own without needing crutches anymore. 2 years later, Mirinda was in 5th grade. There were still scars on her lips, but they were hardly noticeable and less mentioned. It seems Mirinda has grown to like looking at her face in the mirror. Upon waking up, She heads straight to the bathroom and faces herself in the mirror with a smile. She used to dislike even approaching a mirror. The memory of those times feels like a distant past, making me chuckle to myself. I wish I could see Dad. Miranda sighed. Dennis has been on a work assignment far away. We sometimes communicate via video calls, but it's not the same as having him nearby. Sherry said her family is going on an overseas trip. Frederick is going camping. Everyone seems so lucky. Despite it being summer vacation, Miranda lamented not being able to go anywhere due to our circumstances. One day, while we were spending a holiday at home, the doorbell suddenly rang. I'll get it. Miranda stopped her summer homework in the living room and headed to the entrance, as I was busy with household chores and couldn't leave them. What, Aunt again? You came back. I could hear Miranda's displeased voice. How rude. You came back? I'm your aunt, after all. Family can visit as many times as they want, right? Saying so, the visitor entered the house without waiting for Miranda's consent. It's cool here. Revived. I poked my head out from the balcony and welcomed the guest half-heartedly. Welcome, Ensley. The guest was Ensley, Dennis's sister. According to Dennis, after graduating from high school, Ensley worked as an office clerk at a small trading company, but ended up quitting within 3 months after being reprimanded by a senior for taking too many days off and getting into a heated argument. Now, she's living back at home. Dad told me she doesn't even bother to look at job ads he shows her. Just throws them on the floor and spends all day playing video games. Dennis complained about Ensley's lack of motivation. Ensley just sat down on the sofa as if it were the most natural thing in the world. As Miranda tried to return to her homework, Ensley, fanning her sweaty shirt front to catch some air, exclaimed, "It's so hot. This weather is absolutely crazy." Ensley loudly exclaimed, disregarding Miranda, who was trying to study. When Miranda frowned in annoyance, Ensley did not miss it. Am I bothering you, niece? She asked with a creepy smile, intentionally disturbing Miranda. Miranda just sighed without engaging, knowing from experience that arguing would only encourage Ensley to be more annoying. Miranda, I'd like something cold. Auntie's thirsty, Ensley said in a cloying voice and hugged Miranda. Please stay away, it's hot. Miranda pushed Ensley away with a calm voice as she tried to lean on her, and Ensley clicked her tongue. What's with you? No charm at all. Eleanor, don't you have something to drink? I took out coffee from the fridge, poured it into a cup, and handed it to Ensley. Could you keep it down a bit? Miranda is studying. I admonished Ensley in a low voice, though I knew it was futile. You know, I always wonder. Ensley looked around the room and poked Miranda's cheek with her finger, asking, why doesn't Miranda study in her own room? Seeing Miranda swat her hand away, Ensley laughed as if amused. To save on electricity. Miranda answered irritably. Saving on electricity? So that's why you're scrimping? Mom isn't working, right? That's why you guys are poor. Miranda slammed her hand on the table in frustration. Don't compare me to someone who doesn't work despite being old enough. Are you talking about me? Wow, Miranda, that's harsh. Your mom doesn't work outside either. Always lazing around at home just like me, right? That's not true. Mom is busy being a housewife. She's always cooking, cleaning, doing laundry. There's a lot to do. She's not lazy like Aunt. Miranda retorted with a firm stance. Really? Even Miranda is being cold to me? Listen, my parents are like, if you want to use the air conditioner so much, pay the high electricity bill yourself. Can you believe that? Living with family and they say that? It's your own fault for not working and just lazing around and playing in your room all the time. Well, it's not like I can pay for that. Going to cafes costs money, department stores are far and a hassle. So in the end, the only place I can rely on is Miranda's house. Despite Miranda's reluctance, Ensley hugged her again. This is how Ensley would come over unannounced, trampling over our lives every time. Even though she's Dennis's sister, I couldn't bring myself to forcefully kick her out. When I consult Dennis, who's away on his own, he says, kick her out immediately. If it comes to it, calling the police is fine. But she's still family, and I couldn't bring myself to do that. Taking advantage of my inability to stand firm, Ensley has been getting increasingly bold lately. Anyway, Eleanor, you've got it easy, right? Because you can just play around at home every day. I'm not taking it easy at all. I snapped back at Ensley, irritated. After engaging more than I should have, I calmed down and realized I shouldn't have. Predictably, Ensley got even more encouraged. It's fine to slack off, right? Just buy whatever you like from the grocery store for meals, and for cleaning, just quickly tidy up the places that catch the eye. That's what I would do, LOL. She suggested I take shortcuts in my role as a housewife. Don't compare me with Aunt. Besides, it's annoying because of her I can't concentrate on my studies. Can you just go home? Miranda protested strongly. Oh, scary. Ensley exaggeratedly shivered. So, Miranda, what have you been studying? Should I help you? I might be able to teach you addition or subtraction. I've already learned that, thank you. Please, just go home. Oh. What's this? Your summer project isn't finished yet. Ensley peered over at Miranda's planner. I remember those days. With summer projects, you never really know what to do, right? It's hard to find something you actually want to research. In that regard, Miranda, I'm kinda envious. What do you mean? Well, not many kids are born with such an interesting face like you. Why don't you compile something about that condition? It'd be easy, right? LOL. It's about yourself, so you wouldn't have to research much. I couldn't stay silent at my sister-in-law's incredibly insensitive remark. Enough, Ensley. There are things you should and shouldn't say, even if we're family. Oh, scary, scary. I was just stating the facts. If she compiles something about her interesting condition, everyone will be pleased, won't they? Ensley is calling Miranda's condition interesting. Laughing, without knowing how much pain and suffering Miranda and we have gone through. Miranda, don't worry about what such a person says. I grabbed Ensley's arm, trying to drag her out of the house with all my might. That's when Miranda stood up slowly and said with a smile, "Don't worry, Mom. I've decided." In contrast to me, who was about to explode with anger, Miranda was completely calm. Well then, Miranda, I don't quite understand, but your mom seems really angry, so I'll leave. Ensley said without a shred of remorse, smirking creepily as she prepared to leave. I wanted to unleash my anger on her, but Miranda pulled at the hem of my shirt, stopping me. You too, Mom, shouldn't worry about what that person says. Looking at the suddenly quiet entrance after Ensley left, Miranda spoke. She must have some plan in mind. Thinking this, I managed to suppress my anger. 3 months passed. Miranda, it's okay to relax a bit. Saying that, the national newspaper reporter eased the slightly tense expression on Miranda's face. Dressed in new clothes bought for this day, Miranda smiled with confidence. That's the spirit. You're doing great. Praised by the handsome reporter, Miranda's cheeks flushed slightly. 3 months ago, I couldn't have imagined Miranda being interviewed by a national newspaper. The interview took place in a small cafe in the neighborhood, which we had reserved. The owner, who I've known for a long time, whispered to me, "Hasn't Miranda become quite beautiful?" Indeed, the last time the owner saw Miranda was before her 4th surgery. As Miranda's mother, always watching her closely, it was hard for me to notice. But acquaintances who saw her without a mask after a long time were often surprised. Miranda's treatment had progressed so much that her facial structure from her mouth to her nose was indistinguishable from other children's. Of course, some surgery scars remained, but they were hardly noticeable unless pointed out. Let's take one last photo. Smile. Prompted by the reporter, Miranda smiled broadly without her mask. 3 months ago, on the night Ensley left, Miranda declared to me, "I've decided on my summer project theme. I want everyone to know about me. I'll do what Aunt suggested." She didn't seem bothered by Ensley's words. In fact, she seemed more radiant than before. "Is that okay with you, Miranda?" I asked. Laughing a little, Miranda said, "Mom, you're always overprotective. I'm not the crybaby I used to be. This is something I've decided to do myself." Seeing my daughter so full of confidence, I felt reassured. "All right, then I won't stop you. Go ahead as you think is best, Miranda." "Okay, got it." From that day, Miranda began to confront her condition of cleft lip and palate again. Shortly after starting elementary school, she had been teased by classmates about the shape of her nose and mouth. Suffering in silence because she couldn't tell her parents. She compiled the numerous surgeries she underwent and the teasing into a booklet, including photos from those times. There's one photo that is particularly meaningful to me. It was taken the day Miranda first opened up to us about the mean things said at school. Although she protested, "No, don't take a picture," I took it anyway. "Why did you take a photo?" She protested tearfully, but I hugged her tightly. "Someday, we'll look back at this day and laugh, Miranda." At the time, Miranda couldn't understand and just cried out of frustration. Afterward, we discussed why people hold such prejudices. We concluded that prejudice stems from ignorance. Indeed, cleft lip and palate is a rare condition, affecting 1 in 1,000 people. But with ongoing treatment, one's appearance can become indistinguishable from others. We hoped that more people knowing about the condition and its treatment would reduce the instances of patients being viewed strangely. That became our family's unified wish. In advancing her summer project, Miranda set up a special website and conducted a survey for children suffering from the same condition and their parents. This revealed that other families, like ours, were troubled and pained by prejudice. Good luck, Miranda. You're very brave. If there's anything we can do, just let us know. I realized Miranda had many supportive comrades suffering from the same condition. Mom, thank you for giving birth to me. Thank you for raising me. Because you supported me, I was able to get this far. Miranda whispered, looking at the photo. The hard worker is you, I replied. Miranda had undergone numerous surgeries since she was very young. Especially the 4th surgery, which involved transplanting bone from her pelvis to her upper jaw, was the most challenging, leaving her unable to walk on her own for a while, but she never complained. She is truly a strong child. Of course, I feel like hiding my face with a mask. But I've come to think that this unique aspect of mine could be considered cool. Miranda said confidently. A month after summer vacation ended, Miranda came home from school and said, "Look. My summer project was highly praised at school, and I was awarded this certificate." She showed me the certificate, breathless and sweaty from her excitement. My friend said I was cool. Miranda happily shared her school experiences. A month after that, a newspaper company contacted us for an interview. I read the interview article. Mirinda, you're amazing. Mirinda's article was published in a national newspaper, catching the eye of Dennis, who was on a work assignment. He immediately video called us. If you were going to be published, you could have told me. I was just reading the newspaper when suddenly I see Mirinda's face all over it. And I spit out the coffee I was drinking from surprise. It wouldn't have been fun if I told you beforehand. I wanted to see your reaction without saying anything first. So, I fell for the surprise, huh? Dennis laughed heartily over the video call. Mirinda peeked out and said, "Are you happy to see your daughter's face after so long, Dad?" Well, yes. But, you really gathered courage to compile something about your condition, didn't you? Then, Mirinda's smile faded, and she answered seriously. I presented it because I wanted to reduce the number of people who, like Aunt, say hurtful things out of ignorance about diseases and disabilities. Ensley? Did she say something to you? We revealed the hurtful things Ensley had said to Mirinda during her summer visit. That girl. Dennis sighed. I'll give her a piece of my mind. The next day, we received a call from Mael. I read Mirinda's article. It's amazing, Mirinda. But I heard Ensley said terrible things. Dennis called me yesterday, and I was shocked. Luke is furious. He's been saying he won't forgive Ensley since yesterday. I'm worried his blood pressure might go up. But Ensley really is trouble. Mael said, promising to make Ensley apologize soon. A few days later, Ensley came to visit as promised. Are you there? If you are, come out already. She banged on the door so hard I worried it might break, not seeming like she came to apologize, but rather irritated. When I went to answer, there stood Ensley, looking devilish. What are you doing on your own? She protested, not apologizing but complaining instead. I had no idea why Ensley was so angry. When I remained silent, thanks to your daughter stirring things up, I got yelled at by my parents and bro. Now I feel uncomfortable at home. How are you going to take responsibility? She demanded. Apparently, Ensley had been severely scolded by my in-laws and Dennis because of Mirinda's project. But I thought it was all Ensley's fault. Unable to hold back my anger at Ensley's lack of remorse, I exploded. Enough, Ensley. If you're not here to apologize, please leave. I finally let out the anger I had been holding back, even to Ensley, who kept repeating her arrogant attitude. For the first time, I openly protested, leaving Ensley momentarily taken aback. Whether you're my husband's sister or whoever, anyone who hurts my precious daughter is not family. Don't come to our house again. You're nothing but trouble. What? Getting angry all of a sudden? Silly. Even though I came to apologize, you're kicking me out. Fine then. I'll tell the family you're a stubborn DIL. Just remember that. Mirinda interjected while listening beside me. Aunt. I'm recording our conversation, so lying is useless. It'll be found out soon anyway. She said, admonishing Ensley like a child who won't listen. Oh well. I guess I'll forgive you just for today then. With those final words, Ensley left with a pale face. Ah, that feels so much better. Now in 5th grade, Mirinda seems more mature than ever to me. She never used to complain, not because she didn't want to but because she didn't want to worry us. But now, it's different. Mirinda isn't holding back tears anymore. She doesn't even feel the need to cry because she's become so strong and resilient. Looking at Mirinda's serene profile, I couldn't help but feel a bit reflective. Maybe I've been too worried about her. With the sole intention of not letting her feel lonely, I quit my job to always be there for her. But it seems Mirinda is fine now. Without me realizing, she has grown up and surrounded herself with many strong allies. Lately, she's been bringing school friends home more frequently. What? Is there something on my face? Mirinda noticed my gaze and looked at me questioningly. Yes, lots of happiness. What? That makes no sense. Laughing at my response, Mirinda seemed amused. Feeling her growth, I decided to rejoin the workforce at an apparel company I had been invited to rejoin. Eleanor, I read the newspaper. Mirinda did great, didn't she? Every time my coworkers mentioned it, I calmly responded, she probably doesn't think she did anything extraordinary. She just presented her life as it is. One evening, Mirinda shared her future dreams with me. I want to become a doctor. To help children and families suffering from diseases and disabilities like mine. Facing myself through my summer project made me think that. And I've been thinking lately, there are people who can't run fast, those who struggle with studies. Tall people, short people. My condition is just another trait among those. Hearing her aspirations, I felt hopeful for her future. Oh, and by the way, a boy in my class told me he likes me. Mirinda casually mentioned her dream and then shared this news. Reporting this to Dennis via video call, he panicked. What? Isn't it too early for her to be in a relationship? Hey, are you okay with this? Calm down, my dear husband. I calmed down the frantically panicking Dennis. The fact that a boy confessed to Mirinda probably means that the kids around her have stopped caring about her condition. As for Ensley, I heard she was kicked out by Dennis and the in-laws. Ensley, who had been lazing around at home every day without working part-time, finally decided to become independent after losing financial support. In reality, she had no choice but to do so. Now, she struggles with living alone in a small, old apartment, earning a little from part-time work. The wish Mirinda had for her summer project, to reduce ignorant and hurtful comments about diseases and disabilities, is also my wish. Of course, 1 or 2 actions alone won't change the world. But that's exactly why we, who know the struggles and pain, must continue to spread the truth to the world. I vowed in my heart to continue watching over Mirinda, ensuring her growth isn't hindered. Dennis has decided to return from his assignment. Dennis convinced his boss to allow him to work predominantly remotely. I won't let you two feel lonely again, he said. But then, you came back because you're worried Mirinda might get a boyfriend, aren't you? That's not the case, Dennis awkwardly responded. Anyway, we're back to living happily and closely as a family of 3. A family that's always full of laughter, our pride and joy. Hey Barbara, can't you reconsider? Daniel is still in middle school. To leave him and move abroad. Barbara, the wife of her son, tilted her head slightly and frowned as if troubled. Daniel is plain and slow, and to be honest, it feels like he's not even our child. He seems to get along with you in an odd way, so please take good care of him. It's one thing to speak ill of oneself, but to say such words about her own son, Daniel, it made her tremble with anger. However, those feelings were suppressed, never turning into words, remaining in her heart. Daniel and I watched the car carrying the departing son and his family until it was out of sight, then looked up at the orange tree in the empty garden. As I wondered, Daniel pointed out that there were still a few left. My son Charles and his family had taken many oranges for memories, but a few remained on the branches. From a distance, it was hard to see clearly, but some of the fruit seemed to be slightly damaged. Does that mean they didn't want those oranges? As it got colder with a slight breeze, I suggested to Daniel that we go inside, but he shook his head slightly and turned to me. his face overflowing with tears. Dad and Mom don't want me because I'm slow. It's okay. You don't need to worry. I was furious. I closed my eyes, pondering what to do with this anger, and then pondered some more, firmly resolving to affirm and raise this child positively. My name is Susan. Lately, I've lost my appetite and have been feeling unwell. When I consulted a doctor about my unclear health issues, I was advised to get more nutrition. Even with the vague advice to get more nutrition, I wondered what exactly I should eat, considering going to a steakhouse every day. But that would never be sustainable with any amount of living expenses, so I decided to make balanced meals every day. No, that would be too much hassle to keep up. So, I decided to make it a point to eat the oranges planted in my garden. Honestly, I never really cared for the oranges planted in the yard before. I hadn't paid much attention to them every year. Usually, I left the fruit for the birds to eat or just cleaned up whatever fell to the ground. But this year, after seeing a TV infomercial about easy-to-use pruning shears, I was full of motivation and bought them. Just when I was determined to start picking the oranges, I ended up hurting my back. It was supposed to be easy according to the sales pitch, but apparently not for someone with a bad back. If there's a house in a quiet residential area known for its large orange tree, that would be ours. Our orange tree has years when it bears lots of fruit and years when it doesn't, and this year, the branches are laden with oranges. It's just the year I was determined to eat a lot of them. But what to do with my injured back? Just when I was thinking that, my son and his family came to visit at the perfect time. When I explained the situation to my son, he immediately said, "All right, I'll pick them." And he rushed out to the garden. My son and my grandson, Christopher, were using a long-handled pruning shear to joyfully pick oranges from the branches. "Wow, Christopher! You got a big one!" My son skillfully cut the oranges from the branches and had his son pick them up. As for me, I was sitting by the window overlooking the orange tree, staring at a chessboard with my other grandson, Daniel. Daniel was looking intently at the chess pieces laid out on the board, lost in thought, seemingly oblivious to the noise of Charles and Christopher gathering oranges in the garden. It seems I was so focused that I didn't even hear Charles and Christopher making noise while gathering oranges in the garden. When Christopher, the older brother, quietly placed an orange beside Daniel and then turned to me, he put his index finger to his lips in a gesture for silence. He didn't want to disturb his brother, who was deeply engrossed in the game. That was the kind of kindness Christopher had. "Charles, lunch is ready." "Yeah, thanks. We'll be right there." Perhaps one reason my son and his wife visit my house several times a month is because my husband had passed away early. My son's wife, Barbara, is a down-to-earth woman who naturally takes over the kitchen in our house to prepare lunches for everyone. Daniel and I were invited to join them for the meal, but Daniel remained silent, staring at the chessboard, unwilling to move. When I gently touched Daniel's shoulder, "Huh?" he looked up in surprise, saying, "Grandma, will you play chess with me after lunch?" "Of course. Let's go." Barbara, Charles, and Christopher were enjoying their meal while watching TV, laughing together. The TV featured a special on a high school soccer player belonging to a famous high school, and Charles pointed at the TV, tapping Christopher on the shoulder. "Hey, look, Christopher. The high school you're going to is on TV." Christopher has always been athletically gifted, shining in every game he plays. Daniel took up soccer as well, but wasn't quite as skilled. He couldn't outshine his brother. Barbara looked at Christopher with joy and said, "I heard from a friend that Christopher is quite famous among middle schoolers. He's really good at soccer. It seems his name has even spread to other schools." She looked even happier than Christopher, the subject of the conversation. I couldn't help but clear my throat and glance at Daniel's expression. He looked somewhat lonely, slowly slurping up his pasta one strand at a time. Now that Christopher has a scholarship for soccer in high school, it's Daniel's turn. With a promising brother like Christopher, Daniel will surely improve quickly too. Right. Christopher and Daniel, let's play soccer in the park after lunch. But Charles, isn't Daniel going to continue with chess? Oh, right. You haven't finished yet? I informed Charles that the game was still ongoing. Then, I suggested if they'd like to join us in chess, though playing soccer is also great. Charles and Barbara exchanged glances and started laughing together. You're joking, right? Playing chess by the window on such a sunny day? What an unhealthy hobby. Charles, that's a bit harsh on Susan's only hobby. Both of them seemed to mock me and Daniel, but I didn't want to argue and risk spoiling our family relationship, so I nodded along and started washing up in the kitchen. I peeled the freshly picked oranges, placed them on a plate, and brought them out. Christopher and Daniel started eating them, laughing together. I discreetly approached Charles and tapped him lightly on the head from behind. Hey, you know Daniel isn't much into sports like soccer, right? He enjoys playing chess, so don't say weird things. Did I say something wrong? Charles, seeming neither concerned nor remorseful, took the ball and went to the nearby park with Christopher and Barbara. Left behind, Daniel and I returned to our seats by the window. Sitting in front of the sunlit chessboard, Daniel casually looked up at the orange tree. There are still a lot of oranges left, huh? Yes, do you want some more? Daniel shook his head slightly and then turned his gaze back to the chessboard, refocusing his attention. He has a strong ability to concentrate. At this point, I can't predict how Daniel will grow up, but I have a feeling he'll take a path quite different from his brother Christopher's. And so years passed since then. On a sunny day, Daniel and I were again eating oranges picked from the garden. After Charles finished bringing in few small boxes to my house, he stood by the window with a gentle smile, looking up at the orange tree. Sorry, Mom, please take good care of Daniel. I pondered over how to respond. While caressing the oranges picked from the garden, I sighed. Christopher, having been recognized for his soccer talent at his new high school, was scouted by an overseas club team. I, knowing little about soccer, couldn't grasp the significance of the team that scouted my grandson. But when I heard Charles was ready to quit his job and move abroad, I realized this was a big deal. With assistance promised by the scouting team for their life abroad, Barbara was already excited about the overseas move. Every time we met, she would say, "I'm really interested in foreign cultures." She was already studying the culture of the country through books. I had assumed the whole family would move abroad, but they asked me to raise Daniel alone in my house. Christopher was initially surprised and was opposed to the idea. Think about it, Christopher. Wouldn't Daniel be happier living here with Grandma than in an unfamiliar environment? Don't you think so? But Barbara convinced him by saying so. And today, after moving all of Daniel's belongings into my house, they were set to leave on an afternoon flight. Daniel looked sad as he checked the contents of a cardboard box filled with his clothes. Charles and Christopher, knowing they wouldn't return to this house for a while, picked many oranges from the garden tree as a final memory. As the tree's branches became bare with each orange picked, it started to look naked. Daniel, Grandma might not feel well sometimes, so help her out, okay? And work hard on your studies too. Charles said this to Daniel as he cheerfully bid farewell. Though I knew it was already decided, I couldn't help but pull Barbara aside to a spot away from Christopher and Daniel and started speaking in a low voice. Hey Barbara, can't you reconsider? Daniel is still attending middle school. To leave him and move abroad. Barbara tilted her head slightly and frowned as if troubled. Daniel is plain and slow, and to be honest, it feels like he's not even our child. Since he seems to get along with you in a strange way, please take good care of him. It's one thing to speak ill of oneself, but to say such words about your own son, Daniel, made me tremble with anger. However, those feelings remained pressed deep into my heart, never turning into words. Daniel and I watched the car carrying my departing son and his family until it disappeared from view, then turned to look up at the orange tree in the empty garden. As I wondered about the tree, Daniel spoke and pointed out. There are a few left. Charles and the others had taken many oranges as memories, but a few remained on the branches. From a distance, it was unclear, but some appeared slightly damaged. Does that mean they didn't want those oranges? As the breeze grew colder, I suggested to Daniel that we go inside. He shook his head slightly and turned to me, his face overflowing with tears. Dad and Mom don't want me because I'm slow. It's okay. There's nothing to worry about. I was furious. I closed my eyes, pondering what to do with this anger, then resolved to affirm and nurture this child positively. 9 years have passed since then. Beside the chessboard by the window, I looked up at the orange tree in the garden. The birds know best when the oranges are ripe, pecking at the fruit when it's time. I used this as a cue to start harvesting. Stepping out from the window to the garden, I picked a low-hanging fruit. It was free of insect damage and had a nice color. After the doorbell rang, I called out loudly, "It's open!" To my surprise, I was greeted by an unexpected visitor as heavy footsteps approached. Mom, it's been a while. Where's Daniel? It's really been a long time. What brings you here all of a sudden? Well, I saw Daniel's achievements in the newspaper. Isn't it amazing? Finally, he feels like our son. As I sighed heavily and sat back down in front of the chessboard, Barbara asked, "Where's Daniel?" "He's reading a chess magazine in his room. He's a pro now, so try not to disturb him." Since our parting 9 years ago, Daniel and I played chess daily, and he gradually showed his talent, eventually becoming a professional chess player. The journey was tough, but we persevered together. Though he never said it, Daniel might have wanted to prove something to the parents who left him. Recently, Daniel won a major title as a pro chess player, making headlines. I hadn't told Charles or Barbara, but they must have found out and hurried back. Soon, Daniel came out of his room. He had grown taller and more robust over the 9 years, the perfect picture of health. Charles, seeing his son all grown up, said, "It's been a while." Saying this, he put his arm around Daniel's shoulder, and from behind, Barbara also. "You've become so admirable," smiled tenderly, as if completely contented. "Now I'm willing to live with you. Now that you're a respectable adult, it's your turn to help out your dad and mom with their lives. I'm apparently not your child, so I have no obligation to help." The conversation sounded almost like a comedy, making me burst out laughing. Charles, tapping Daniel on the shoulder, looked puzzled. It seemed like the words were completely unexpected. The audacity to offer to live together after 9 years was astonishing. "What's wrong? Are you being stubborn after this long reunion? You must have been lonely living with Grandma all this time." "Don't worry, we'll live together from now on." "What are you talking about? Live together? I'm not a child anymore, why should I live with you?" Barbara, pulling Charles away from the frozen embrace, said, "What are you saying? We haven't been able to contact Christopher for years, and our life is in shambles. We've been living off Christopher's soccer income, and now we have no savings. What does that have to do with me? After all the effort we put into supporting Christopher's soccer, he suddenly disappeared. We didn't know what to do. It's impossible for us to start working now, and you're the only one we can rely on. If you're looking for Christopher, he's here in this house. Hey, Christopher. At Daniel's casual call, Christopher appeared from the kitchen, wearing a cute cat apron, holding an orange, and skillfully peeling it with a knife. What's up? Christopher, with an innocent expression, surprised Charles and Barbara by being there. Christopher, why are you here? Seems like there's a lot we need to talk about, so just sit down and wait. I'll cut some oranges for us. As Christopher served the oranges on a plate to Charles and Barbara, I prepared coffee for everyone. Christopher began to share that, although he was initially enthusiastic about his soccer career and contract with an overseas club, his experiences abroad gradually sparked an interest in becoming an interpreter. Upon hearing Christopher's dream, Charles, being an interpreter won't earn you as much as a professional soccer player, that's not acceptable, dismissed it without even listening. Disappointed by his parents, who seemed only to care about the money he could bring in rather than his dreams, Christopher lost interest in soccer. He secretly contacted Daniel and me and returned to our town. Now, he's working at a language school while studying to become an interpreter. After explaining this, Christopher sat up straight and faced Charles and Barbara directly. I'm truly grateful that you took me abroad for soccer. But I've found a dream I want to pursue more than soccer. If you're going to deny that, I'd rather you not be involved in my life. Not be involved? Do you know how much we sacrificed to support your soccer career abroad? He reflected on how much time he had sacrificed as a father to support Christopher's soccer. He passionately explained how much he and Barbara, Christopher's mother, had hoped and expected to make Christopher a top soccer player. Christopher, your dad quit his job to support your soccer. And now, you're giving that up for a job as an interpreter? It's not too late to go back to the club team. Right, that's a good idea. If life gets tough until you succeed in soccer, Daniel can support us. He's a famous chess player now, after all. The conversation seemed somewhat detached from reality. Perhaps even Charles and Barbara realized the absurdity of their words. Despite understanding the unfairness of their situation, fear of not being able to survive without such plans seemed to drive their irrational statements. The reason no one spoke up wasn't because the discussion had concluded, but rather because the end point of the conversation had become unclear. I poured coffee into each of the empty cups. The scent of coffee filled the living room, which was enveloped in silence. Daniel quietly shifted his gaze to the chessboard by the window. After Dad and Mom left for abroad, I played chess almost every day. Left for abroad? That makes us sound like the bad guys. Do you think you would have been happy if you had come with us? You're right. If I had lived with parents like you, I might have lost sight of what I was striving for, just like Christopher did. This provocative stance immediately angered Barbara. She stood up and lunged at Daniel, prompting me to quickly step in front of him to block her. Barbara glared at me and shouted at Daniel. Move! How dare you speak to your parents like that? Speak to your parents? It's been 9 years. 9 years! You didn't come back to see Daniel even once in all that time. Can you imagine how long these years have been for him? We are their parents, you know? Can you believe that children wouldn't help their parents? Christopher and Daniel are saying they're abandoning us when we're in trouble. Charles, not wanting to be outdone by Barbara's intensity, stood up to face me as well. Exactly. It's irresponsible not to help when your parents are in trouble. It's a child's duty. You're talking about duty? I mentioned I was feeling a bit unwell 9 years ago, remember? Yet, you chose to ignore that and went abroad. It's shameful to change your tune when it suits you. But that's because... Charles mumbled awkwardly, his gaze darting around, not sure what to do. Christopher approached Daniel with a calm voice and apologized. I'm really sorry for everything. Dad, we've decided we want to cut ties with you and Mom. Can you just leave us alone from now on? Don't joke around. What do you take your parents for? Use us when convenient and discard us when done? You're going to abandon us irresponsibly while we're struggling with our lives? Involuntarily, I found myself shouting. That's not it! My voice might have echoed throughout the quiet neighborhood, possibly heard by the neighbors. But I couldn't worry about the neighbors at such a moment. I grasped Christopher and Daniel's hands firmly in mine. Holding them by my sides, I could feel them trembling slightly. Despite their calm demeanor, they were frightened by their biological parents' sudden visit. I knew I had to express the anger on their behalf. It was time to voice the feelings Christopher and Daniel had harbored towards their parents. It's the adults' job to work for their children, not the other way around. We're the parents. We are a family. After abandoning a young Daniel and selfishly deciding on Christopher's potential, like you have any rights to say that. How are you their family? At my words, Charles's eyes widened in shock, and he reached out to grab my collar. Instinctively, I braced for any potential violence by curling up defensively. However, Daniel quickly stepped in front of me and effortlessly lifted Charles, sending him spinning through the air. And before you know it, Charles was lying on the ground, looking up at Daniel. In a state of shock and lying down, Charles is too astonished to say anything. He probably never imagined that the once frail Daniel could throw him. I won't allow anyone to harm our family. Being completely thrown can make a person feel utterly defeated. Charles, lying on the ground and looked down upon by Daniel, must have felt a deep sense of embarrassment. Barbara rushed to Charles with a worried look, but he got up, saying, I'm fine. However, the aggression he had shown earlier had vanished. Voices from outside could be heard. It seemed the neighbors had gathered, alerted by the shouting from our house. Charles and Barbara exchanged glances and hurriedly left the house, their departure marked by their pitiful retreat. Their future, after such a humiliating exit, remained unknown. Relying on Christopher's income from soccer, Charles and Barbara had little in the way of qualifications or work experience, making it difficult for them to find decent employment at their age. 2 years later, Christopher successfully became an interpreter. His work took him to various places, keeping him busy. Daniel continued to diligently study and practice chess, striving to master the game. Both brothers excelled in their respective fields. As for me, with my grandchildren grown and independent, I started teaching at a children's chess club, aiming to nurture their interests. Having loved chess since childhood, I had once dreamed of becoming a professional player. Despite joining chess clubs in middle and high school and competing in numerous matches, I recognized my limitations and eventually lost faith in my own talent. Even though friends and family encouraged me, saying I had talent and should keep at it, I lost the ability to believe in myself. Having experienced the pain of not accepting my own immaturity, regretting giving up on my dreams, and feeling a tightness in my chest, I had a strong desire to convey something important to the children in my chess class. After all, I had successfully raised Daniel, an exceptional professional player. Although it's often challenging, I find fulfillment in guiding each child, focusing on their individual hearts and potential. Christopher and Daniel live harmoniously with me, sharing these values. I deeply respect Christopher and Daniel, each thriving and fulfilling their dreams. One day, after a long while, Christopher and Daniel offered to pick oranges in our garden. As I've gotten older, reaching for the high oranges has become more of a chore, so I was grateful for the help. Christopher stretched the pruning shears as high as he could, trying to gather all the oranges for my chess club students. "This is quite the tedious task," I remarked with a smile, solving chess problems by the window. I remembered how I used to challenge Daniel with my own chess problems, but now, as a professional player, he would present me with puzzles and watch amused as I pondered over them. "This one's tough." It's a joyful realization that Daniel, whom I taught chess, has far surpassed me in skill. Hearing laughter, I saw Christopher and Daniel gathering oranges with joy. "Grandma? What's up?" "There's something I've always wondered about every year." Daniel pointed to an orange located at the very top of the tree. "That branch is always out of reach with the pruning shears, so picking from it is forbidden. Shouldn't we pick all of them for your chess students?" I stopped Christopher from fetching a ladder from the shed. "Leaving a few oranges on the tree keeps it from looking completely bare." I chuckled. "Leave that one. It's meant to be left there." I used to look at the remaining oranges after Dad and Mom left us and wonder if I was like those unwanted fruits. Daniel's face showed a hint of sadness. I remained silent, focusing on the chess problem. "Not just for oranges, but there's an old custom of leaving one fruit on the tree instead of picking them all." Daniel came over to me and watched as I pondered over a chess problem he had created. His expression bore the same youthful look as it did back then. "There's an old custom of leaving one fruit on the tree as a token of gratitude and hope for future harvests." Gratitude and hope. Moreover, it's left as food for the birds to help them through the harsh winter. The last remaining orange isn't unwanted, it's actually the most special one. Special. I see, so that's how it was. Daniel whispered softly, and I gently stroked his head. Daniel, who has grown quite a bit, doesn't try to escape from my hands and allows me to continue stroking him without resistance. Well, what to do now? This chess problem presented by such a dear grandchild. It's too difficult for me to understand at all. Maintaining my dignity as a respected chess figure in his eyes was crucial, yet finding the solution seemed impossible in the moment. As I pondered, stroking Daniel's head, I hoped for a way out of this predicament, wishing for more such special moments to continue indefinitely.
"Our kid, we're giving him to Mom. Can you imagine how happy she'll be, living with her grandson every day, even if he's sick?" The malice in my son's voice, heard over the phone, seemed almost mocking. I hugged my grandson tightly, making sure he couldn't hear that voice. He just turned 7 and had recently been to the hospital. There, the doctors diagnosed him with a certain illness, and my son and his wife left him at my house. Coming home from work, my heart nearly leapt out of my chest at the sight of my grandson sitting dejectedly in front of the entrance. From my grandson himself. "I was abandoned by Dad and Mom because I'm sick." I wished he could understand what this feels like for me. I immediately called my son. His response was an audacious declaration of abandonment. His wife, presumably next to him, let out a vulgar laugh. "She's near the end of her life anyway. Let the old lady take care of him, if she's so worried about getting sick." She spewed harsher words than my son and hung up the phone laughing. The call cut off unilaterally, never connected again, and I resolved to care for my trembling grandson in my arms. I'll raise him. First off, my name is Scarlett. I'm 57 years old and employed. I married my husband at 22 and gave birth to our eldest son, Henry, the following year. My husband adored Henry, and our family of 3 lived happily. "He's so cute. I'm so happy to have such a cute child," my husband would say, beaming while holding Henry. But that happiness didn't last. When Henry was 2, my husband suddenly fell ill and passed away. I was inconsolable, but as a single mother, I had no time to grieve. I had to raise Henry alone. I worked hard and never remarried. Luckily, having been a full-time employee even before marriage, I managed to raise Henry without financial struggles. Henry is now 34. He works in a general company, but has always been somewhat frivolous and easily influenced. He landed his current job somewhat aimlessly, persuaded by a college senior. At 26, Henry married Hannah, a woman his age. Hannah was very strong-willed, and I never had a good impression of her, even during their courtship. For instance, Hannah frequently visited our home, but never once said hello or goodbye. One day, I gently brought this up. "Hannah, I'm glad you come to visit, but I'd appreciate it if you could at least say hello." Hannah responded with a sulky attitude. "Uh-huh. Why should I say that? I'm a guest. I'm doing you a favor by visiting. It's really annoying to be told what to do." I was taken aback by her defiance. "And Henry?" "Mom, don't be so stiff," he would say. I thought it was common sense to greet when visiting someone's home, but apparently it didn't apply to Hannah. Henry seemed completely under the dominant Hannah's influence. After Hannah left, I reiterated my earlier point to Henry. "Just let it go." He dismissed it. Because of such incidents, I had a poor impression of Hannah. Of course, I repeatedly told Henry to be more responsible. The two of them rented an apartment after marriage and lived near us. The following year, they had their first son, Noah. He was my first grandchild. Children grow up so fast, and Noah soon turned 7. One day, as I was returning from work, and my house came into view, I noticed someone sitting at the entrance. Who is that? As I got closer, I realized it was Noah. I hadn't seen my son, his wife, or Noah recently due to my busy schedule, so I was surprised and delighted to see him after such a long time. "Noah, it's been a while. What are you doing here?" As I called out to him, Noah slowly looked up and met my eyes. "Grandma?" Seeing Noah's face after so long, I was speechless with shock. Parts of his face were pale and blotchy, and his eyes were red and swollen, as if he had been crying. I tried to stay calm and invited Noah inside the house. And then, "Noah, what happened? Can you tell Grandma?" I asked gently. Noah nodded and began to speak slowly. "You see, I got the skin disease. I forgot its name because it was complicated, but they said it's a rare disease." My heart ached seeing young Noah's trembling lips and his face turning pale. "A rare disease? Is that really what they said?" "Yes, since I got this disease, Mom and Dad stopped looking at me. Today they brought me here, in front of Grandma's house, and told me to wait for you. Then Mom and Dad left." Shocked by Noah's story, I hurriedly called Henry. To keep Noah from hearing the conversation, I had him stay in the living room with the juice, while I moved to another room. "Henry, I heard it from Noah. How could you leave him in front of our house without telling me? What were you thinking?" "Ah, Mom's back. Yeah, Noah. He's got this rare disease called simplex pityriasis. It's a real hassle, you know." Simplex pityriasis. I remember hearing that name before. It had been featured on TV once. I'm sure it was a skin infection. If I recall correctly, it's a skin infection common in children, not a rare disease. Is that a rare disease? "We were told it's simplex pityriasis by the dermatologist. It's a difficult name, so it must be a rare disease, right? So we thought if we get it, that'd be bad. Hannah suggested that you should take care of him, and I agreed. So Mom, please raise Noah for us. Thanks." What? You're still his parents. This is utterly irresponsible. I yelled, furious at Henry's outrageous statement. Then the phone was passed to Hannah, and her shrill voice came through. Henry and I are still young and have our whole lives ahead of us. It would be terrible if we caught such a creepy skin disease. So let the old lady who's got less time ahead take care of him. Bye. After her unilateral outburst, the call was cut off. Stunned, I immediately took out a book from the bookshelf with various diseases and their treatments to look up simplex pityriasis. Thank goodness, it's just a skin infection. He'll be fine. After researching, simplex pityriasis turned out to be not a rare disease, and in most cases, it's curable with proper treatment. Relieved, I felt a surge of anger towards my despicable son and his wife. Henry and Hannah had arbitrarily decided it was a rare disease because of the difficult name and left Noah with me, not wanting to catch it themselves. How selfish of them. I'll definitely raise Noah well. I muttered with determination and returned to the living room, smiling at Noah, who looked anxious. Noah, don't worry. Your illness can be cured. Let's go to the hospital together tomorrow. Really? Noah, who thought his condition was incurable, lit up. Yes, it's not a rare disease, so relax. And Noah, from today, you'll live with Grandma. It's okay. I'll make sure you're happy. Let's live together happily. Noah seemed a bit confused, but eventually nodded. Thank you, Grandma. He showed me a smile. Years passed, and it's been 9 years since then. I turned 66, and Noah is now 16. During these 9 years, there is no contact with my son and his wife. Noah, now in his teens, doesn't talk much, but he's grown into a kind boy who sometimes cooks meals. Having retired, I support Noah with my pension and retirement fund. One day, my son and his wife, who disappeared 9 years ago, suddenly showed up at our home. What do you want now, after all this time? I confronted them coldly at the entrance. After 9 years of silence, how dare they show their faces? Yeah, we saw that TV show the other day. Amazing Noah. To think he can earn so much money at his age. Apparently, they had seen a recent TV interview titled Teenage Genius Inventor. Hannah standing beside Henry. Getting patents and all. Really amazing, right? So rich now, huh? She said with a sneering smile. Yes, Noah is skilled at inventing and recently obtained a patent. Their attitude made it clear they came today, thinking Noah had made money from his patent. These two didn't show any concern for Noah, only talking about how rich they thought he had become. What a despicable couple they still are. Then Noah appeared behind me. He must have heard our conversation. Hey Noah, we've come to get you. A son is still a son, even if he's suffering from illness. Let's live together again with Dad and Mom. Henry's exaggerated behavior seemed forced. To this, Noah coldly replied, Who are you? Noah, now a high school student, was old enough to understand. He must have realized from the conversation that his parents were only after money and had no affection for him. The son and his wife seemed surprised by Noah's indifferent attitude, but quickly recovered and started talking about various things. And then, Noah has a disease, so his life will be very difficult. That's why Hannah and I will support him, Henry declared. What? You abandoned me, and now you're acting all high and mighty? Don't start acting like a dad now. Noah, having listened to them for a while, clicked his tongue in disgust and laughed it off. I was astounded that they still believed Noah had a rare disease. His skin condition had completely healed by now. Henry and Mrs. Hannah, you've been mistaken all this time. Noah doesn't have a rare disease. Simplex pityriasis is a common skin infection in children. Noah recovered completely in about a year. My explanation left my son and his wife speechless. Then Henry suddenly changed his tone. We were deceived. This is a joke. Why didn't you tell us such important information? He yelled. Following him, Hannah also. You were kidnapped by this old lady. She took you for 9 years. Give back our child. You kidnapper! Shouted Hannah. Despite their noisy ranting, Noah calmly took out his mobile phone from his pocket and called the police. The police are on their way. Also, just to clear up any misunderstanding, getting a patent doesn't instantly make you rich. It only starts to pay off when businesses use the technology. And then I receive royalties. It's not some groundbreaking discovery, nor a widely used patent, so it's not likely I'm rich. All the money I've received so far has gone to cover materials, so I don't have any money. After Noah explained this, the couple turned red with anger. What the hell? Then why did we come here? They exploded in fury. Seeing this, Noah sighed. I don't know. You came on your own, and now you're angry for no reason. Just go home. Noah laughed, to which Henry exclaimed, Don't be so insolent. Henry's fist was clenched, ready to strike Noah, but I quickly stepped forward. Just before Henry could hit me, a loud male voice called out, Stop it! It was a police officer outside the window. Seeing Henry's aggressive stance, they had moved in quickly. Another male officer quietly entered from the front door, stepping between us and Henry. Henry swung his clenched fist, laughing as if nothing had happened. Then to Noah, Don't get cocky just because you're an inventor or something. Live with your grandma forever. He spat out these words and left. The police asked about our well-being, to which we replied we were safe. After explaining the situation to them, they advised not to let my son and his wife into the house again, and I nodded in agreement. The police reassured us they would help if anything else happened. After the police left, worried about Noah's mental state. Are you okay? I asked. Even though he acted tough, being treated like that by his own parents must have hurt. But Noah said, It would be a lie to say I'm not shocked. I thought I knew my parents were the worst for abandoning me after misinterpreting a doctor's diagnosis as a serious illness. But I never thought they were both that stupid. Thinking I'd be rich just because of a patent, spouting nice words, did they really think I'd agree to live with them again? He sighed deeply, clearly displeased, and ruffled his hair. But the next moment, he narrowed his eyes and looked down at me. More importantly, Grandma, why did you try to protect me when I was about to be hit? I'm already 16 and bigger than you. I don't need protection. Noah told me this with an exasperated tone. I couldn't help but feel the same. What are you talking about? No matter how old you get, you want to protect your child. It's not about how big you are. I answered him seriously, and Noah groaned in a low voice before turning his back. I'd hate it more if you got hurt, he said awkwardly, then went back to his room. It seems he was worried about me. I felt happy, realizing Noah had grown up to be kind. After that, I immediately contacted a certain person. A few days later, I, along with that person, went to the house where my son and his wife now lived. As I rang the doorbell, Henry lazily opened the door and was shocked to see me and the person beside me. John? Why? The person next to me was Henry's friend, John. Startled by Henry's voice, Hannah also came from the back. Mr. John? Her face turned pale. Ignoring me, the couple trembled at John's visit. It's been a while, Henry and Hannah. John spoke, and Henry, with intense curiosity, asked, How did you find this place? I answered Henry's question. When you came to our house the other day, you were bragging to Noah that you now live in a house in Portland. I didn't miss that. What? But how did you know exactly where we live? We didn't mention the specific address, Henry said in a panic. Right. That's why I hired a private detective to locate your address. Private detective? That's unfair. It's no different from stalking. Then you were easily found. That's why I contacted John, and the two of us came to see you today. It's cowardly to use a public trust. It's no different from a stalker.
Henry screamed, but John glared at him.
I have no sympathy for scammers. More importantly, Henry, Hannah, I want my money back.
John's firm voice filled the room. At his words, the couple shuddered in surprise. Yes, John, a friend of Henry, had lent them money. I learned about this fact after my son and his wife had disappeared. John came to my house, saying he had lent them money, but couldn't contact them anymore. He thought they might have returned to their parents' house because they were struggling, so he came to ask. He had asked me to contact him if I found out where they were. You two, John said you borrowed $5,000 from him, saying Noah had a serious illness and you were in dire need of money. You exploited his sympathy. My words made the couple look down, trembling. It's not just John. You borrowed money from many others, using the same story. And when repayment became difficult, you abandoned Noah and disappeared without paying anyone back. You've exploited people's kindness and done something truly despicable.
No, but we really thought Noah had a serious illness.
That's right. We borrowed the money because we believed that. The couple tried to excuse themselves, but I yelled at them, completely appalled. What are you saying? Even if you thought that, you didn't do anything for Noah's treatment. You took him to the dermatologist once and then just left him, not spending a single penny. Where's the money you borrowed from your friends? It's not used for treatment, so you must have it, right? Of course you don't. It must have been spent on your enjoyment. You are the worst as parents and human beings. Have some shame. The son and his wife fell silent. The reason you left Noah at my house wasn't because you were afraid of his illness being contagious, but to default on the money you borrowed from others. You started going on frequent trips and wearing only branded items months before you abandoned Noah.
No, but we really didn't want to be around Noah because his illness was creepy.
Even now, the couple kept making excuses, and their words were utterly despicable. I sighed deeply. Noah was lucky not to be raised by parents like you. Otherwise, he might have ended up with a distorted personality because of you. I'm glad he's grown up to be so kind and respectable. The couple looked sulky and unconvinced. John then said to them,
I have a rough idea of the other friends who were victims, so I plan to contact them and start a class action lawsuit against you two. Be prepared.
His tone was stern.
A lawsuit? Wait a minute. Isn't that a bit too much? Too much? How? Unless you say right now that you'll repay me and everyone else in full. But you've already spent all that money, haven't you?
John's questioning left the couple speechless.
I never imagined I'd be betrayed by you, Henry, a longtime friend. After you two disappeared, I became distrustful of people for a while. I will never forgive you.
John glared at them with hatred in his eyes. I also told my son and his wife. You don't have to worry about Noah. He's a high school student now, capable of thinking for himself, so please don't contact him. And with that, I cut ties with them. Months later, despite being threatened, Henry and his wife still hadn't repaid the money. The couple faced a class action lawsuit from people they had borrowed money from. The amount each person loaned was less than $10,000, but it totaled a significant sum, leaving them unable to repay the debt. They had to sell the house they bought just a few years ago. Most of the proceeds went to the mortgage, and the little left was used to pay the compensation. I couldn't believe they had to sell their residence, their most valuable asset. But they had planned to come to my house, so they decided to sell it. I found out about this after the lawsuit had been going on for a while. Henry called me in a rage.
Mom, hey, our house is gone. What's going on?
I sold it. Just like the for sale sign says. You can see that, right? I had decided to sell the house and land even before they faced the lawsuit. The real estate agent advised that it's better to demolish the house and sell the land, as vacant plots are harder to sell these days. Following the advice, I demolished the house and sold the land quickly due to its good location. I used the money for moving expenses with Noah. Noah was attending a high school quite far from our old home, and the commute was long, so we moved closer to his school. After explaining this, Henry started shouting, "What? Where are you living now? We sold our house and have nowhere to go. We plan to live with you, so give us your address." "I won't tell you. One of the reasons I sold the house and land was to cut ties with you. I won't tell you where we live now, and I'm going to block your number, so don't contact us ever again." "That's too harsh." Behind a stunned Henry, I could hear Hannah's voice filled with despair. "The ones who are harsh are you two. It seems like you haven't reflected at all, but you should take some time to think about your actions and reflect. That's all I can say as a parent. Goodbye." With that, I hung up the phone and set it to block their calls. My estranged son and his wife eventually found an old apartment to live in, but it seems they're having a tough time. Afterwards, I consulted the lawyer, hired by John, and reconsidered my relationship with Noah. Until now, I had raised him as a substitute parent, being his grandmother. However, now Henry and his wife's presence was having a negative impact on Noah. So I thought about becoming Noah's parent legally, adopting him as my son. If recognized, I would need to split my inheritance between Noah and Henry when I pass away. This would be an effective way to prevent Henry from taking everything. I decided to confirm Noah's feelings. "Noah, I'm thinking about adopting you, not just as grandmother and grandson, but legally as mother and son. What do you think? Of course, I want to respect your feelings." After my question, Noah was silent for a while. "Yeah, I want to be officially your son." He smiled shyly. Having confirmed Noah's feelings, I contacted the family court with the help of the lawyer. Due to Henry and his wife's deplorable actions, the adoption was approved relatively easily. Noah, being 16 years old, must have also played a significant role. Noah and I successfully completed the adoption process. Although Noah is still in the midst of adolescence, I was very happy that he chose me over his biological parents. Noah, skilled in inventing, continues to take on various challenges, and I enjoy a peaceful life, looking forward to his growth.
It's so sad, isn't it? Poor people can't even take a day off work. It's hard to look at someone so shabby. I really feel for their son, not being able to choose his parents. Poor people should just stick together. Please don't come near me. I arrived at my son's sports event in my work clothes. Then, one of the mom friends made a harsh comment towards me. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. Little did they know who I really was. My name is Cindy. I'm 35 years old. I live with my husband and son. Recently, we went through a big change. Due to my husband's job, we moved to the city. I had moved when we got married, but moving with a family was harder than I expected. Unpacking, setting up furniture and appliances, sorting out utilities, changing the address on my driver's license. The days just fly by. Especially tough was taking care of my son Chester while moving. Chester, ever so curious, tries to go off on his own. He doesn't care that it's an unfamiliar place. "Hey, where are you going?" "To the nearby supermarket." "You went there yesterday, right? What will you do without any money?" "Well, it's boring at home." "Did you finish setting up your room? You haven't opened all the boxes yet, have you?" "Not yet, but…" "Do that first. Mom's heading to the school now, so have it done by the time I get back, okay?" Yeah. Just once is enough for a year. I always tell you that, don't I? Today, I have to go to the elementary school for Chester's transfer process. I always try to be on time, but this morning was so hectic I ended up running to the school. As I neared the school gate, I caught my breath before entering. Walking into the staff room, more than half of the desks were empty, probably because of classes. It's been a while since I've in a staff room. Brings back memories of my school days. Feeling a bit nervous, I checked the seating chart for Chester's teacher. That's when a woman approached me. "Can I help you with something?" "I'm looking for my son's teacher's desk." "Oh, it's that one in the corner." "Thank you." As I was about to head over, the woman continued. "Excuse me, you're new here, right? Looking for a teacher? Do you have a child at this school?" "Yes, I'm Cindy. We recently moved nearby. I'm here for my son Chester's enrollment. He'll be in 4th grade." "Oh, is that so? I'm Sissy. My son is also 4th grade. Maybe they'll be in the same class. Nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you too." Though we exchanged greetings, I couldn't help but notice Sissy's expression. Was it my imagination? She seemed to scrutinize me from head to toe as if scoring me. Was there something on my clothes? Or a stray gray hair, perhaps? Then Sissy spoke up. "By the way, did you buy that outfit at a dollar store?" "This? No, it's not from there." "Wearing that to school? It's pitiful for your son, Chester, isn't it? He would want his mom to always look nice." "I see." This was the first time someone had been so harsh with me. It was a big blow, especially since I was already exhausted. Looking closely, I noticed Sissy was dressed in high-end brands. Unfazed, she continued. "There's a bathroom down the hall. Why don't you look at yourself in the mirror? You'll understand what I mean." With that, she left the staff room. I sighed with relief. Then Chester's teacher approached me. "You're Cindy, right?" "Yes, I'm your son's teacher. Looking forward to working with you." The teacher seemed calm and kind. "Sissy you were just talking to, she's quite a character, isn't she?" Unable to affirm or deny, I just laughed it off. "She's the PTA president, known around here as the leader of the mom group." "Is that so?" "Yes, she's often comes to school without much reason. Seems like she's just showing off her branded clothes and bags." The teacher's troubled expression was memorable. Being a school teacher must be tough. Not only do they have to take care of students, but also handle parents. Anyway, I need to be careful around Sissy from now on, I thought to myself. The paperwork went smoothly, and I headed home. The next day, I rode my bike to the nearby supermarket. Eggs were on the sale today. As I parked my bike, I unfortunately spotted Sissy getting out of a taxi. I quickly looked away, but it was too late. Sissy briskly approached me. "Oh, isn't that Cindy?" "Hello, thank you for yesterday." She was dressed head to toe in brand names again today. Without intending, I wore the same outfit as yesterday. I thought it wouldn't matter since I was just going to the supermarket and didn't know many people yet. But she immediately began her fashion critique. "Excuse me, are you wearing the same clothes as yesterday?" "Yes." "I'm embarrassed. It's been hectic with the move." "That's just an excuse, isn't it? Can't you dress a bit more decently?" I was lost for words at Sissy's audacity. I may only earn $3,000 a year, but I never skimp on style. My husband, a CEO, always says that first impression count. Wait, 3,000? As I stood there speechless, she continued. "Make sure you dress up for next week's sports event. You don't want to be ridiculed, and it affects your child's education too." With that, she clicked her heels and disappeared into the supermarket. I didn't go inside, but instead rode my bike to another supermarket. Everyone has people they dislike. I believe in keeping a distance from such people in interpersonal relationships. While thinking about dinner, I headed to the supermarket. A week later, it was suddenly the day of Chester's sports event. I woke up early and started making his lunch. I planned to pack all of Chester's favorites: chicken nuggets, sausages, sandwiches. I decided to ignore nutritional balance just for today. Imagining Chester's happy face, I diligently packed the lunch. Then I noticed my mobile phone vibrating. Who could it be this early in the morning? It was a call from work. I had a bad feeling. I answered immediately. My hunch was right. There was a problem at work, and it seemed too much for my subordinates to handle alone. I quickly got ready and left for work. Thanks to my subordinates' prompt contact, we were able to solve the problem quickly. But the sports event had already started. They were probably doing free throws in basketball by now. I rushed home, packed the lunch, and headed to the school. I didn't change my clothes. Rather than wasting time on that, I wanted to watch Chester do his best, even if it was just for a second longer. I arrived at the field, out of breath. The sports event was in full swing. As I was moved by the children's performance, a familiar voice called my name. Cindy! I turned around to see the last person I wanted to meet, Sissy. Hello. Sissy looked at me, frowning. She was decked out in browns again today. Is that work clothes? Yes, there was a problem at work this morning, so I had to go in. I didn't have time to change. I should go now. As I tried to leave, she wouldn't let me. Wait a minute, work clothes? What kind of nerve do you have? Unbelievable! Her mocking laughter echoed. I saw men in suits approaching from the VIP area. Sissy seemed unaware. She continued to tirade against me. Poor people can't even take a day off work. How sad. It's hard to watch someone so shabby. Your son, unable to choose his parents, must be pitiful. Poor people should just stick together. Please don't come near me. Her loud words drew the attention of those around us. Everyone was looking our way, whispering among themselves. I was thinking about how to handle this situation. That's when I was approached by some men from the VIP area. A member of the parliament I often saw on street posters. President Cindy, good work out there. Thank you. This morning must have been tough, but as expected of a president, resolving the issue so quickly. It was a team effort. I couldn't have done it alone. Are you here for a promotional activity today? Haha, no, my son goes to this school. Your son? I didn't know that. My apologies. I had met him as part of a promotional campaign. Hearing our conversation, Sissy looked confused. And for a good reason. She had pegged me as a poor person, but in reality, I'm a president. My husband is an executive at Sharon Doll, a world-renowned apparel company in New York. I'm the president of that company. Our annual turnover is $500,000. We had recently moved here from the heart of New York. I'm a bit shy to say this, but we fall into the category of what one would call celebrities. The work clothes I'm wearing are a new product from Sharon Doll, designed to revolutionize work attire by combining style and functionality. It took about 3 years to develop, and it's a product we are proud of. It's been making a buzz in Japan recently, with extensive promotions. We hired a popular young actor as the model, and advertised through TV commercials, magazines, and social media. It should be quite well known, but Sissy, only interested in established brands, didn't know about our company. The crowd started whispering. I heard people saying, "Isn't that Sharon Doll's new product?" Furthermore, rumors were spreading that Sissy, despite wearing branded clothes, was ignorant of the latest trends. Overwhelmed, Sissy quickly left the scene. I was bombarded with questions about the new product by other parents, but I left it to my subordinates and went to find Chester. I found him stretching, preparing for his turn. "Chester, do your best!" I shouted, making sure my voice wasn't drowned out by the surrounding noise. Quickly, Chester noticed and waved back. I managed to see his goal kick. He looked so pleased with himself. Watching him, my heart swelled with pride. Kids grow up so fast. That's why every moment is precious. Chester and I enjoyed lunch together, and I supported him wholeheartedly in the afternoon events. A few days later, an unexpected fact came to light. Sissy's husband's company was a client of Sharon Doll. Due to this incident, the contract was terminated. Her husband's arrogant nature became evident. The company took a huge hit, likely struggling to stay afloat in our industry. Once you get a bad reputation, it's almost impossible to recover. And Sissy's public insult to me became an issue with the education board. Someone who had heard our conversation leaked her rant. There were even videos which spread quickly on the social media. Though the faces were blurred, it was obviously Sissy and me. I tried to have it removed multiple times, but as soon as one was deleted, another appeared. I grew tired of this endless cycle. It's a true digital tattoo. Because of that video, Sissy's family lost their place in both the school and the community. They stopped attending school events and eventually moved away. Sissy's family moved away late at night, almost like they were fleeing. I later learned that Sissy hadn't only been targeting me. Apparently, she often made snide remarks to other parents who didn't wear brand name clothes. She didn't just impose her tastes on others, she also denigrated their characters. The school and other parents had been filing complaints against her. Unintentionally, we all ended up being thanked for driving the Sissy family away. Thanks to an offer from the school and support from the community, I'm now serving as a fashion advisor for parents and children. I am thrilled to be able to use my experience and knowledge. Above all, it's great to have the chance to become closer with Chester's friends and their parents. Today, I'm hosting a session on winter outfit coordination at the local community center. I've prepared thoroughly. Though it's not my main job, I'm eager to enhance my experience. As I was eating breakfast, I noticed Chester staring at me. "What's up? You've been looking at Mom?" "Mom, you've been really cool lately." "Really? What brought this on?" "I didn't really understand your job before, but now I see your company's clothes on TV, and you're speaking today, right?" "That's right." "Mom, you're amazing. My friends even say your mom is incredible." "Really? That makes Mom happy." Balancing parenting and work is truly challenging. Sometimes I think about spending more time with Chester if I weren't working. But Chester seems to understand something from watching me work. It's been worth it, striving positively as a president, wife and mother. "Mom's going to keep working hard, so you do your best in your studies, Chester." Okay. Just once for an okay. We finished our breakfast with smiles.
My son is starting elementary school. In celebration, my dad suggested we go to a fancy restaurant. I'm Kate. I turned 40 this year. Our family lives together, me, my husband, and my dad, Randall, and my mom, Nancy. My husband, Jason, is 42. We have 2 kids, our son, Poder, who is 6 and starting elementary school in September, and his little sister, Effie, who is 3. It's rare these days, but we're a bustling 3-generation family of 6. I was thrilled to hear that a branch of the famous restaurant Arva had opened nearby. Arva is a renowned Michelin-starred restaurant. This new branch is just a 20-minute drive from our house. I had always wanted to go, but we usually ended up at our regular diner. It took something special like this celebration to get a chance to dine there. I've been excited for about a week. Jason, who was more reserved, just smiles wryly at me. He's not one to make a fuss. He doesn't say it every time, but whose celebration is it anyway? I guess that's what he was thinking. I know, but it's fine. I was ecstatic to the point where I think Potter's celebration is my celebration. Potter's food is my food. Then the day arrived. Entering the doors of Arva, I was full of anticipation. We have a reservation for 6. Dad spoke up. Yes, for 6. We've been expecting you. But as soon as we sat at the counter, kids, huh? They don't even appreciate the taste. I heard the chef mutter under his breath. What? I did a double take at the chef. He turned his back to us swiftly. Dad and Mom didn't seem to notice anything. Maybe I was the only one who heard it because I was closest to the chef. This restaurant doesn't have prices on the menu, I remarked upon seeing the menu. The chef overheard my quiet comment. A sharp voice came from the chef. Our prices are based on the current market. If you have good eyes, you should be able to guess, he said loudly. Everyone at the counter started looking at us. I was embarrassed. I had never been to such a fancy place. But then Dad said, Then chef, we'll leave it to you. And he turned to me and said, Don't worry if you're not used to it. It's a celebration for our grandson, so eat your fill. He tapped his wallet. I'll handle the bill. The chef smirked at that, but I didn't miss it. His earlier muttering, the snide remark, and now this attitude. It didn't feel right. But Dad, seemingly oblivious, continued. Just remember to say when you've had enough, or they'll keep bringing more. I didn't know that rule. I've only ever really been at rather casual places, so I felt embarrassed. But what happened next was strange. For our family, they only brought out mac and cheese and french fries, over and over again. Is this their recommendation? Other customers were getting salads and main dishes. I love french fries! The kids were happy, but I still felt uneasy. After the 3rd round of mac and cheese and french fries, We're done, let's have the bill, Dad said calmly. I've never seen him angry. You'd expect someone to get mad over just mac and cheese and french fries, but he was planning to leave peacefully. Here you go. Looking at the bill, I turned white. $600 for just mac and cheese and french fries? Can we see the itemized bill? I had to ask. The chef, with a look of disdain, said, I told you, it's based on the current market price. Current market prices for mac and cheese and french fries? Plus water and juice? I argued back, furious at the absurd price. But even then, look, this isn't like the french fries you eat at McDonald's, the chef said arrogantly, making presumptuous comments. Then show me the details right now, not in the form of a receipt or anything. I get it, you've been mocking me. I confronted the chef, almost grabbing him by the collar. Just wait, I'll pay for it, so you don't have to worry. Dad said so, but I replied, No! With $600, do you know how many times we could have had steak or seafood at a diner? Then, the chef, looking annoyed, began to write something down. When I saw the detailed bill he wrote, my anger only grew. $50 for french fries, $65 for mac and cheese. But what shocked me even more was $20 for a glass of water? That was it. However, the chef said nonchalantly, charging $20 for a glass of water is common sense. No customers have ever complained about it. That means you all don't fit in here. It's obvious when you bring kids. If you don't like it, don't come. Poor people. After saying that, the chef intimidated us with his chest and pushed us out of the restaurant. We'll pay for what we ate, Dad said. Pulling out the credit card from his wallet, the chef snatched it roughly, without a word of thanks, and closed the door. Grandpa, thank you! The french fries were delicious. Me too, the mac and cheese was good, the kid said. Dad narrowed his eyes. That's good, but I feel bad for you guys, I said. It's not your fault, Dad. That guy was the problem. Still in an angry tone. Jason, being timid, said, I'm really okay with just the french fries. Tomorrow's Sunday. Let's reset and go to another restaurant. Dad suggested. What? But after spending $600? I protested. Don't worry, I properly want to celebrate my grandkids, and you've done well raising them to this point. It's also a thank you for that, Dad replied. But then, Dad turning his back to us, muttering, that brat, don't get cocky. I couldn't help but overhear. We ended up going to another restaurant the next day. This time, it was a place Dad was familiar with, so I felt relieved. That's because I'll talk about that a bit later. To the kids, we wanted to eat seafood and such, so let's go again, I said. Can't miss seafood and steak, they began. So 2 consecutive days weren't a problem. When we got to the restaurant, Randall, long time no see. Dad was greeted. Hi, Osbert, long time. Let's go to the chef's choice today. Start with seafood for the grandkids, Dad said, unfolding a napkin. The seafood will be seasonal, the best for your grandchildren. Maybe salmon for this time of year, the chef Osbert said cheerfully. When people talk about what they love, they become eloquent. This chef was exactly that. He happily talked about the deliciousness of seasonal items. Listening to him made us happy too. A stark contrast to yesterday. And the seafood brought to our table. Delicious! It has a subtle sweetness. What was used in the cooking? The seafood salad, with its dressing, was a perfect match. Refreshing, yet rich. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call it the best food of the season. I chewed and swallowed, savoring the food from the tip of my tongue to the back. Each bite seemed too precious to swallow. The smooth seafood oil had no fishy smell, but a sip of white wine reset it all. My palate, ready for the next dish as if it hadn't tasted anything before. Could there be a greater luxury? I was wondering what would come next when, bang! The door flew open with incredible force, so strong I thought it might come off its hinges. Startled by the loud noise, I turned around, only to scream in shock the next moment. What? The chef from yesterday? There stood the arrogant chef from the high-end restaurant that looked down on us the day before. Still in his cooking attire, he barged into the restaurant and rudely took off his hat. Master, why did you cancel the use of the restaurant Arva name for the branch? He yelled. Dad responded, sipping water with a smirk. I was waiting for you. I heard about it. You were extremely rude to this gentleman, said Osbert, who was called the master, addressing the arrogant chef who had stormed in. What? This gentleman? The arrogant chef looked at Dad sitting at the counter. Then, ugh, the poor guy from yesterday, he exclaimed. Osbert retorted, Poor? Do you even realize who this man is? He yelled loudly. This man is my master, the founder of Restaurant Arva. What? The arrogant chef reflexively apologized to Dad on the spot. I was a bit surprised and excited. Actually, I knew that Dad was the chef of Restaurant Arva. He had retired from Restaurant Arva and handed over the chef duties to Osbert. This was that restaurant. And the branch of Restaurant Arva, when we visited yesterday, had this arrogant chef. I wanted to say that during the absurd customer service and the exorbitant bill, but Dad had wanted to handle it quietly, so I didn't say anything. I also thought that Dad must have had something in mind, so I kept quiet. And here we were. It wasn't a lie when I said we usually eat at casual diners. It was mostly casual diners when it was just the kids, Jason and me. My dad is a chef. Out of respect for Dad's pride as a chef, we didn't go to cheap restaurants when my parents were around. And when it was just the 4 of us, me, Jason, and the kids, we went to casual diners. So, in a sense, we were poor people who only ate at diners. But I couldn't stand the arrogant chef from yesterday. Now, watching the arrogant chef apologize was somewhat amusing. After glancing at the arrogant chef, Dad said, May I borrow a knife? Osbert stood up and walked into the kitchen. Of course, master! And goes into the kitchen. The dish we had earlier was exactly as I had instructed. You're doing well. He spoke to Osbert and then took hold of a knife. Dad's knife skills transformed the same menu item that had been served earlier. The seafood looked different just because of the way it was cut. He placed it in front of the 5 of us, then served the last piece of salmon. "Try this," he said to the arrogant chef. The arrogant chef got up leisurely. He took a bite. "What is this?" The arrogant chef's eyes widened. "That's the point," Dad said. "The taste is completely different depending on how you use the knife." The arrogant chef's voice trembled. "Compared to that," Dad continued, "the salmon you cut and served to other customers wasn't uniformly thick, which affects the taste." The arrogant chef shrunk in size, looking down. "That's not all. The other seafood was the same, and the mac and cheese was overcooked and the french fries were over-fried." Then Dad turned to Osbert and said, "I think it was too early to open a branch with this guy." Osbert apologized. "Well then, let's hear the reason why you only serve mac and cheese and french fries for the chef's choice." Dad continued. "What?" Osbert exclaimed in surprise. The arrogant chef started to tremble. Osbert stood in front of the cowering, looking down arrogant chef, arms crossed, voice trembling with anger. "You! What have you done? Mac and cheese and french fries for the chef's choice?" "That's not all," Dad continues speaking. "The water was $20 a glass." $20? The chef's voice cracked. Osbert's voice cracked. Then the arrogant chef began making excuses. His explanation was so outrageous that everyone present was stunned. "At first, I didn't want to bother with small change, so I made water current market price to make it an even $100 bill." "What?" Jason and I exclaimed in unison. "So if the bill was $90, you'd charge $10 for water, and if it was $20, you'd charge $80 for water?" Jason asked unusually. "Current market price." "That's the most ridiculous current market price ever!" Osbert yelled. "So it was $20 this time," Dad said. "Honestly, for office workers, they become repeat customers. But families, especially with small children and elderly, only come for special occasions, so we can't expect repeats." The arrogant chef started. To this, "There's no such business strategy!" Even Dad, who was usually calm, got angry. "Listen, a business strategy is something you talk about after you've properly delivered your services. Current market price is a proud pricing for the freshness of fish, visible to the eye. Don't misuse it for trivial accounting conveniences, and you haven't even reached the level of skill to cook them properly. Customers are equal. They pay and look forward to their meal, no matter the day or time. Don't presume to scrutinize them." Dad rarely got this angry or spoke this much. I think his chef's pride made him do it. The arrogant chef was cowed and looking down. After a stern lecture, "What are you going to do about him?" Dad asked Osbert, and then he said, "You do understand," to the still looking down arrogant chef. "You are forbidden to use the Restaurant Arva name," Osbert said. "He wasn't like that before, and his taste was solid, but he changed after owning this place," Osbert said. Being a famous restaurant's branch, customers would come just for the name, and he probably got conceited with the high customer count. He kept deteriorating in his quest for more profit. Still, Dad's skills hadn't faded with age. "Grandpa, you were cool," said Potter. Thus, the arrogant chef was made to change the name of his restaurant. But that restaurant closed within a few months. Without the famous name, it was a world of pure skill. The taste must have been lacking. "Wasn't tasty, just famous," was the harsh critique on Yelp. The arrogant chef became infamous for the Restaurant Arva branch incidents and couldn't find work anywhere. He returned to the countryside, I heard, from Dad's disciple, the chef. The absurd $600 bill was returned by the chef, who took it from the arrogant chef. Osbert said it was his responsibility for training such a man and a gift to the master. He even made our meal that day free. One day, "Grandpa, this is a thank you," Effie said, smiling, handing something to Dad. In her small hand was a slightly clumsy seafood salad, all bought from a grocery store. Effie had arranged it on a plate herself. The dressing was overdone and too salty, but Dad ate it with a beaming smile. Delicious! Thank you, he said, stroking Effie's head happily. I'll pass on showing off today, said Poder. When I grow up and become a chef, I'll invite Grandpa as my first customer, he also said. Dad stroked Poder's head too, looking happy. If I make something really delicious, let me use the restaurant Arva name too, Poder said. He didn't yet understand what it means to use that name entailed. I hope you can, Dad laughed.